Welcome to Proven and Probable. Today we're going to highlight the new copper kid in town riding in on a kangaroo. Our featured company has just announced their maiden resource on a world-class copper and gold discovery. But before we begin, as always, I would appreciate if you click the subscribe button, click the bell, and give us a thumbs up. Now, on to today's interview. Joining us for a conversation is Christian Easterday, the CEO of Hoti Chili Limited. Mr. Easterday, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, Morris.
Glad to finally have you on the program to share the value proposition before us in Hoti Chili Limited, which has just announced a maiden resource on a world-class copper gold discovery. Before we delve into the exciting news you have for current and prospective shareholders, Mr. Easterday, please introduce us to Hoti Chili Limited and the opportunity the company presents to the market.
Sure, Morris. Well, I suppose we've been toiling away for a number of years over in Chile on the coastline, north of Santiago, some 600 kilometres. And we've really consolidated a major copper super hub, combining quite a number of our key assets. Our original and first exciting discovery we made along the coastline was Productora, some 250 million tonnes of copper and gold, sitting very shallow open pit resource that we completed a large amount of work on back in the last cycle where copper was doing well. And I guess over the last few years we've really transformed ourselves, and that was off the back of being able to secure an agreement to acquire a 100% interest in a very, very exciting discovery that was made only 14 kilometres from our key asset, and that was the Cortadera porphyry discovery. So that was a private discovery that had been made, and really the world didn't know very much, anything about this that had occurred, and it was hiding some world-class drilling intercepts that had basically been walked away, and there was no closeout drilling. So we put a deal together that allowed us to secure that asset at the beginning of last year. We commenced drilling that project in April of last year, and we started producing our first world-class intercepts, 1,000 metre intercepts from surface at 0.5% copper and 0.2 grams per tonne gold. And since that period, we've recorded some 6 of the world's top 25 drilling results from Cortadera, which has really shot it to quite a enviable position within the global copper space. So last Monday was a very big milestone for the company. We were able to jump our resource base from 250 million tonnes to some 750 million tonnes, and now we're sitting in a very, very strong position on the ASX, really with no other ASX copper peers alongside us, and we have a resource base now of 2.9 million tonnes of copper, 2.7 million ounces of gold, and some molybdenum and silver credits thrown in there. So a very, very strong position, sitting with an asset that really looks like the next step is going to push the company towards one of the very, very few non-major companies holding a tier 1 copper asset, and so it's very, very exciting for the team and for the company and for all of our shareholders to have been able to achieve this.
Well, I'm smiling ear to ear just like you are right now. It's a multitude of catalysts and successes here, and I know you're delighted, and so are the shareholders. To set the stage for today's interview, you and I had a discussion last week regarding one of Rick Rule's many famous quotes regarding the differences between investing in gold and copper. Would you mind sharing that with us? I thought it was quite intriguing.
Yeah. Look, we're in a market that is particularly in the Australian market, but I think across the commodity space, that's very excited about the price of gold and where that's going. And I think when we were talking, I recounted a story that Rick had told me, and I'm not sure I've got the facts exactly correct, but he told me that Christian, you invest in gold. As a shareholder to buy your family, its next holiday, but you invest in copper for the long term to buy your family a holiday house. So, very, very different investment space, very different timeframes, and almost an order of magnitude in difference in terms of value and capital required to get a copper project off the ground in relation to a gold project in general. So we're in the very large copper space. We set ourselves on a strategy to be a junior that could break into that very elite class of projects at tier 1 status. Some $35 billion US in ground value generally is the marker in the sand on those assets, and 5 million tonnes of contained copper and above, which very, very few companies hold that have not been taken out by a major or have a major that has a controlling interest in. So yeah, Rick very much knows this space, and I believe that he was one of the early supporters of Ross Beatty and that fantastic wealth generation period that Ross went through, where he picked up assets in a down cycle over in Chile and put these large assets together and simply enjoyed an extremely profitable period as those assets turned into multi-billion-dollar assets from acquisitions that were, in the sub $100 million space. So it is a space that you look at big value numbers and big capital numbers, and there's no better place to be than to be developing a large scale asset in Chile, which is the home of big copper and where 30% of the world's copper comes from these type of deposits.
Well, it appears that there's a new lineage of wealth generation right here before us. To truly appreciate the opportunity before us in hot Chile, we should first consider the macro picture on the supply and demand fundamentals for copper, and they're truly eye-opening to say the least. Mr. Easterday, share with us the projected outlook for copper in the next 25 years.
Wow, well, the next 25 years is quite a time frame, Morris. We generally in this market are quite short-sighted in terms of what does the next 6 months or year look like. So I'll address sort of short, medium, and long term. And short term, I'll be very honest, is anyone's guess. In such a volatile global market with a global pandemic, a once in 100-year pandemic, upon us. There's quite a number of things to be concerned about, and there's also quite a number of things to really look forward to. But I think as I spoke to another interview, I've certainly been watching some of the fundamentals behind the medium and long term view out to 25, and look, it looks very strong. We're in a changing world that is pushing towards renewables. And electrification of the world is key to that. So not just the renewable energy space, but the EV space in terms of automobiles, is really going to transform copper consumption going into the long term. And so I think that most people know that macro story, and it paints a very good picture for players that are in the long term copper business with large assets, as opposed to high grade, short life, more associated with a gold investment profile. So we certainly have that to look forward to. Your key people in the industry, the Robert Friedlands that are masterful at talking their own book. Very much know that thematic and know that they're holding the assets that are undoubtedly going to receive extreme value transformations over the long period. But if we move to the medium term, which is where I think most of the copper players are really positioning, and most of the copper majors are clearly trying to gobble up most of the large assets in the world. I think that you look out in the sort of 1 to 2 year space, and it looks very strong, particularly for a global recovery upon a vaccine being introduced to really get the market moving. But if we look in the short term, and qualifying it with what I said earlier, the space is fraught with uncertainty. But interestingly enough, this has happened 3 times in the last 100 years. Bull markets, not just across gold, are always always, follow a precursor event, and the precursor event is often a bit of a stall in the global market associated with the Great Depression, associated with the Asian crisis, and this has really happened before. When everyone thinks that the world is about to shudder to a halt, and Dr. Copper is really one of those commodities that is a barometer for global growth. It's interesting that we see some of the largest bull runs in the commodity space that the world has seen, and we're seeing that now. We're seeing a real shift in the purchasing of copper from the Chinese, and a real scramble to get people's hands on stockpiles. So we've seen a real rise in the amount of consumption going on at the same time as a pandemic is really sort of choking off the ability of the copper industry to respond. And against all of that, a real fundamental problem with the copper industry is global discovery. The global discovery rate for major copper finds around the world has really fallen off a cliff since 2014. So to be sitting here with one of just two major copper discoveries globally, really since 2014, and we have Marimaca that was discovered and recorded by S&P Global in 2016, a smaller oxide copper discovery, a very good oxide copper discovery in Chile also. But really, Rio Tinto and Hoti Chili are the beneficiaries of the two most recent copper discoveries, Winu for Rio Tinto over here in Western Australia, and of course Cortadera, which was just announced to the world last year and now has culminated in a first resource of some 450 million tonnes from surface. So to be sitting in that space and with these problems that the supply of copper is really being choked off by a real decline in global head grades, and a decline, more importantly, in new copper supply, that can meet that growing demand in the world.
And speaking of copper, the company just released your maiden resource on the Cortadera copper project, which has really placed Hoti Chili in an elite category among your peers. Sir, walk us through the maiden resource, because this is truly an eye-opener.
Yeah, it's not every day you drill 17,000 metres of drilling in less than 1 year, on top of 23,000 metres of private drilling that was undertaken. So we're talking about 40,000 metres of drilling, and that's produced nearly 500 million tonne initial resource on Cortadera. So it really speaks to the sheer potential of this deposit. We haven't actually closed out the discovery zone. The discovery zone is some 2.3 kilometres long, comprising 3 porphyries from surface and extending to almost 1.2 kilometres vertical depth. So these are vertical ore columns that the company has really just started getting its teeth into. And if it wasn't for the pandemic that hit the world this year, we probably would be continuing to drill and pushing that discovery towards what we believe is the ultimate potential of circa 1 billion tonnes. So we've gone early with the resource, and because of the 250 million tonnes that we had in resource base at our Productora asset, some 14 kilometres away, what we've been able to do is bring together the Costa Fuego project that we now refer to, which is a low altitude play, 800 metres altitude, Pan-American highway going right through the middle of us, and a cluster of deposits that accounts for some 750 million tonnes at about 0.5% copper equivalent, all deposits from surface. So Cortadera is certainly the centrepiece. Most people know that we have a high-grade core that we discovered only a year ago, is supported really by about 9 drill holes, and is already over 100 million tonnes at a very strong grade that certainly competes with some of the biggest underground copper mines in the world. So a lot to be excited about in the next phase of growth with Hoti Chili, but certainly you go early with a preliminary resource and you come out with circa 500 million tonnes within a year with very little drilling. I think people can see the ultimate potential of this deposit and where it goes next.
You know, I admire the intangibles just as much as the tangibles, because the intangibles, they're not discussed in the resource. And I'm referring to the commercial success and the business acumen that really define the success of management and the technical teams, respectively. You have to tell us, how were you able to acquire this project? Because it just seemed to come out of nowhere, basically.
Yeah, look, I'd love to tell you we've been a company that just turned up yesterday and have had this amazing success, and we sit with the largest copper resource base on the ASX now, and one of the largest gold resources, not forgetting we have 2.7 million ounces in gold as a credit. But look, if we step back, to when we founded this company in 2008, privately backed by our chairman, Murray Black, to go over to Chile and try to break into the copper sector there as a junior, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. Chile is really owned and dominated by the major mining companies in the world. So doing deals in Chile has always been viewed as expensive. They have a no use it or lose it policy, which makes it hard to be able to actually break in and get good land position. So the story of Hot Chili is one of grinding it out and persisting and developing very strong partnerships in country. It took many, many years of me living over there and refusing to leave some of the companies alone until literally they would do deals with me, probably just to get rid of me. So I suppose, persistence is part of the Hot Chili DNA, and deal making is really one of our biggest strengths, and being able to partner with some of the major mining companies and also some of the very large high net families that really control all of the leases outside of the major companies. So we go back to a period where Hot Chili had a very great success out of its ASX listing in 2010. 3 months later, we really hit a great discovery in Productora, and that drove a lot of value in the company, and we pushed that through, and we're one of the stars of the market in the copper space back in 2013-14. And then, as most people know, the commodity market hit a bit of a brick wall. Copper price fell off a cliff, and really that dried up the amount of capital available to invest in big copper. So, again, speaking to our persistence, it was sort of 4 or 5 years of being on life support from our major shareholders, including the likes of Rick Rule, supporting management and supporting a vision to build a major copper play on the coastline of Chile at low altitude. So that was what kept us going, and why we never ran away. We had the backing of some very reputable people, and so we sit here today. We used to be amongst 40 peers on the ASX in the copper development and exploration space, and I couldn't put names on my fingers at the moment. We're probably less than 5 peers, and now we're the largest through that persistence. But to get to the crux of where we're going with the question, Morris. It was a few years ago that a report fell off the back of the truck, so to speak, and we found out about this private discovery that had occurred, and when the results of that short report hit my desk, and I looked at this thing, my eyes nearly jumped out of my head, and I was looking at Sol Gold drilling intercepts, near 1 kilometre intercepts from surface, and when we got our hands on the data, without the knowledge of the owners of this project, it had been handed back to the Corolla family in Chile, a very, very wealthy family in Chile that operates its own mines and owns department stores and portfolio of 400 retail properties and business chains across Chile and Spain. That group had been given the project back, and we were looking at the data. The key thing that I realised was this deposit had basically been walked away. This discovery did not have that closeout drilling, and we were looking at something that was a blank canvas. So they had put an estimate on this thing, and I not for once believed that estimate was representative of what was sitting there. So we went about 2 years of trying to convince the Corolla family that this naturally should sit with Hot Chili to be able to bring this project forward, to be able to apply heavy investment into this, and for the township of Ionar and that local community to be able to unlock a major copper development on the coastline and employ a lot of people, and something that most Chileans really hold true to their heart. It was 2 years of negotiating with the Carolla family, and really it was probably a case of them telling me and my key legal advisor Jose Ignacio just to go away. We don't sell assets. We don't sell assets to BHP or Lundin. Why would we sell an asset to you? So, it was really about a relationship build, and most of the deals that I've done in Chile are years in the making. And so 2 years while we were watching our share price get ground down, it was our master plan to bring Cortadera together with Productora. So we were able to pull off a $30 million deal over 30 months in scheduled payments for a 100% acquisition. And I remember doing this deal back in February of last year, and at that point our $250 million company was sitting at $10 million value. We were at 1 cent a share, and I think most people were stunned by what they were seeing with the results we showed that of this private discovery. But at the same time, we're absolutely aghast with how in the hell is Christian and Hot Chili going to be able to afford this project. And it's funny how life works. You take on an opportunity, and you spend all of that time trying to get that opportunity, and most of the people in Hot Chili were sort of holding their breath for what happened next once we started drilling it. And to have drilled our first pass RC drilling program to confirm that the drill results on the diamond holes that were at surface, actually the results were real, and the assay data could stand up to scrutiny. And then to turn on a diamond drill rig, in probably about May, and drill one hole. That looks good. We went for an extensional hole first. And then again, as we were compiling the data on this private discovery, we came across the reports from a very well-esteemed porphyry expert that had been guiding this team on the Cortadera discovery. And his final report to his boss, probably trying to convince his boss to keep the asset and we should keep drilling, was that we think we can see that the main porphyry, which is now nearly 800, 900 metres long and 600 metres wide, and vertical over 1.2 kilometres. But back then, it was the early beginnings of CuEq 3, which means body 3 out of the 3 major porphyries at Cortadera in the discovery. And it was that this thing is getting higher grade. Give me some more holes. We'll test this concept. So unfortunately, that guy and that team did not get to test that concept. And as soon as I saw that, I asked the team to turn the mast vertical, and I want to drill down this thing and see whether this thing is getting higher grade at depth. And the rest is history, as they say. 750 metre intercept, or one of the best intercepts going around in the last 2 years. But we hit near 200 metre zone, running at nearly 1% copper and half a gram gold. And wow, did our eyes open at that point. So that's when we were rushedly speaking to guys like Steve Garwin about this, and we're very, very lucky to have Steve Garwin, who's one of the key architects of the Cascabel discovery and the growth of that asset, with the whole Sol Gold team, which have done an amazing job building a 10 million tonne copper play with some 23 million ounces of gold up in Ecuador, and really is one of the leading discoveries globally. So to have Steve Garwin come over and say, I'll help out and I'll lead your team to guide us through how we're going to model this and target this. And yeah, I guess the proof is in the pudding. 6 world-class intercepts now, and a maiden resource of nearly 500 million tonnes within a year. It speaks volumes.
Sorry for the interruption, folks, but I do want to remind you, everything we're covering today with Mr. Easterday, you can find in the description box below. And if you like our content, I would appreciate if you click the subscribe button, click the bell, and give us a thumbs up. Now, back to the interview.
This is exactly why I always reference the virtues of having proven management. What I heard in this narrative right here, I heard resiliency, I heard determination and vision, and that now produces success, not just for the company, but the shareholders, and that's what it's all about. You have to have champions with proven pedigree of success, and that's exactly what we have right here before us. And then you blend that in, of course, with the Maiden Resource. And you made you alluded to this prior to the commentary. There was the gold credits. Germane to this discussion should be the gold credits. How do they fit into the organic growth of the company?
Yeah, look, gold is a very, very key commodity for us. Obviously, copper is the dominant value that we hold within our portfolio of deposits in Chile. But I see a lot of commentary in the gold sector about the gold majors starting to look into the large porphyry copper gold space, and it's very real. I was a gold geologist for many years with some of the Australian more notable companies, but also the Placidomes of the world, and cut my teeth in gold. So back then, I remember I used to go to a biannual conference that talked about the biggest gold discoveries in the world. And gee, over my 20-odd years in this industry, I've seen the start of my career where we used to find plus million-ounce gold deposits. I remember you couldn't get into this conference unless you had, at a minimum, a discovery. I think it started at probably about 3 million ounces of gold. And that New Generations Gold Conference held over here in Western Australia, there's not many gold deposits that sort of sit in the plus million ounce gold space now. So the gold industry is also having a tough time finding large accumulations of gold in one deposit. So it's probably pretty natural that they start looking over into the copper gold space where the Newcrests of the world have fantastic deposits like Cadia and we spoke about Sol Gold. 23 million ounces of gold sitting in Alpala at the moment, and obviously some very exciting exploration upside that's playing out at the moment. But to have a 23 million ounce gold deposit just on its own, I think that probably marries with one of the biggest deposits that the gold space has been trying for many years to get up and developed, which is Pascua-Lama. It's sitting at 4,600 meters altitude with the border of Argentina and Chile going through the middle of the pit they tried to develop. That thing is what, $6-7 billion now stated development value for 23 million ounces of gold. So you get that as a credit now in a porphyry copper gold deposit. And importantly, you've actually got the primary value attribute, which is the copper, which if you want to look at it from a gold perspective, wow, you're getting all your gold for probably, the lowest quartile of production costs in the industry. So these deposits are immense stores of metal, and gold is one of those things that really now has the gold space looking into large porphyry copper gold just to be able to get their hands on big gold deposits, and something that the gold industry is finding hard to find. These tier 1 gold deposits, the 5 and the 10 million ounce plus deposits, they're very rare.
Now, I did reference elite category, did I not earlier?
Yeah.
Hey, a question for you here. Are you...
So, no, 2.7 million ounces is a good start, but we'd like to see that go to 5 million ounces at our next step. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Question for you here, sir. Are you fully permitted on the Cortadera?
Yeah, we I guess we're not an overnight success, as we just discussed with the persistence of Hot Chili. It takes a bit to knock the Hot Chili team down. So we've been at this for a while, and that means outside of your question on permitting, which is a yes, we're fully permitted. All of the leases that contain all of our deposits or resources, mineral resources now, and in fact. All of the deposits that will be mineral resources shortly and added to Costa Fuego's growing inventory. They're all on granted mining leases that we make sure that we have to secure all of the title. But in terms of permitting, having spent $100 million US on our Productora asset, which is now just a very large satellite for Cortadera, 14 kilometres to the west. We've spent a lot of money on a pre-feasibility. I spent many years securing infrastructure access agreements with our major partner at Productora, which is Chile's CMP Cap Group, one of the big three. They're largest iron ore miner and steel fabricator and infrastructure business of Chile. So we brought them in for a 20% interest in Productora into that joint venture, and they handed us the keys to the coastline of Chile. Surface rights, easement corridors for water pipelines, for access to water from the coast, for electrical easements. So we spent a lot of time setting up the infrastructure situation, and some of those access agreements, those things take 8-10 years generally to be able to actually secure in Chile. And actually in the background, we've been trying to secure our maritime concession on the coastline to be able to extract seawater. That's been 7 years in the making, and hopefully we're not far off being one of the very few juniors in Chile to actually have a maritime water extraction license. So, Morris, is a very good question, because a lot of people don't see all of the work that goes into building a mine. Building a mine is a very, very hard thing to do, and it's getting harder. And so your social license to operate and having all of those things in place, mean a great deal to any large developer hoping to transition into production, particularly into the major space.
Before we leave the Cortadera, there's a multi-layered question I have here for you. What is the next unanswered question? When can we expect a response? And what will determine success?
I think the next big question for everybody, having the dust will settle a little on the resource that's occurred, but the market is very forward looking. So I imagine the next question for everybody is, where is the next big drilling intercept going to come from? And most people know that we're drilling some very big potential at the moment. We're not just sitting and incrementally growing the resource, that's still not closed out. We're answering big questions such as, we've just focused on drilling CuEq 3, and we've discovered this big high-grade core that gives us not just a great open pit situation, but a potentially very large high-grade underground development opportunity. So what happens when you drill CuEq 2 at depth? We haven't done that yet, and we've got a hole going down underneath that at the moment. And let alone what happens when we actually get over to CuEq 1 and drill that small little porphyry that doesn't have any drill holes underneath it either. So I think the next question for the market is, where's the next real big leg of growth going to come from in this project? And we even have a drill rig up at a very, very exciting lookalike target to Cortadera, which unbelievably sits 2 kilometres away, an entire 2 kilometre zone that shows a similar footprint to the footprint of the Cortadera discovery that really unbelievably hasn't been drill tested yet. So we just started our second drill hole on that. So I think the next question for the market is, how does this sort of near 500 million tonne play, how does it become 1 billion tonnes quickly? So we're answering that question now, and I imagine over the next few months we'll be skirting around and drilling all of these big growth targets, and we'll hope to answer that very quickly. So hopefully that's answered your question. I think there was 3 parts to that question. I probably got through 2.
What determines success?
Yeah, well, look, what determines success for us, it's at the end of the drill bit. I think that the market wonders, where everything goes to from here with Hot Chili. We're sitting in a space where we've just defined something. We're up amongst the North American players, which dominate the copper sector on the development pipeline and really holding all of the big assets in the world. So we're like this curious thing probably for the North American market. We're a big copper player that's just arrived on the back of a kangaroo. So it's for success for us is being able to play up in the big space amongst the copper developers and aspiring next copper majors that are generally in the 100 to 500 million space, and to be sitting in the ASX where we don't have a lot of peers. It's about translating that value proposition to our market, because at the moment we've just defined probably one of the next very few tier one discoveries to be being put to the global copper industry. So success for me is our next step. It's at the end of the drill bit, and it's about pushing our near 3 million tonnes of copper inventory to 5 million tonnes, and doing that rapidly. So to do that, we've got to go and answer those big questions. What happens at depth on these other porphyries? Are there other high-grade cores? Do these porphyries come together at depth, like what has happened for Soul Gold at Cascabel when they started drilling deeper? And more importantly, do we have another one 2 kilometres away? So it's going to be a very, very exciting, probably 3 months, 6 months, certainly a very exciting year as we answer those questions initially, and we focus on building this resource as rapidly as we can.
New copper kid riding in on a kangaroo. Pretty clever there. I like that one. All right. Switching gears, let's get into some numbers. Please share the capital structure for Hot Chili, sir.
Yeah, look, you don't go through 10 years in the market and surviving 5 years of downturn without having a beaten up capital structure. So I have around about 2.4 billion shares on issue, and fully diluted, sitting around 3 billion shares. So not dissimilar to where the Soul Gold guys find their capital structure. But a very wise person said to me, is it easier to go from 40 cents to $4? Or easier to go from 4 cents to 40 cents. The equation is the same. We really look at this as what's the value of the company, the market capitalization of the company, and we are putting a value proposition to take our company, which at the beginning of last year had got down to 10 million, and we're putting a value proposition to the market to build our company towards a $1 billion market capitalization. That is the aim, and that's what sits underneath that capital structure of 2.4 billion shares on issue. And I imagine that most people can do the maths on what that multiple looks like at the end of this journey. So our capital structure is around 2.4 billion shares. We're trading, I think, at around 4.8 cents today or 4.9 cents today. We just took quite a large leap forward yesterday in the market, and since this resource announcement, we've been seeing a huge amount of liquidity in the stock. Yesterday we had nearly $4 million traded, so certainly we're getting the attention, and I think we have a very exciting period ahead for our shareholders, and we're very fortunate to still have quite a decent treasury, sitting around $4 million in the bank, and we're advancing well with option money coming in, and part of the aspect of the Hot Chili story, which is also very important, is we're about to see first commercial cash flow into our business from a lease mining and processing agreement that we have with the government of Chile at our Productora asset, where they've a couple of months ago just commenced mining some of our high-grade material and being able to fill up their local processing facility some 15 kilometres away in the township of Ionar, and that's been not really about cash flow, although that really helps the company out in terms of its expenditure and its working capital position, but more importantly, that's about our relationship with the government and with the local community and safeguarding jobs. And we have an aspiration to build a very large copper production hub, and if we can help out local jobs and help the government out in that community, then it's a win-win for everybody.
You referenced the Treasury. Is that cash and cash equivalents there, the number you provided?
Yeah, just cash at the moment. So we have a weird situation where our last capital raising put out 2.5-cent options, and so we have quite an inflow of conversion on those options into shares, which is providing inflow of cash into our treasury at the same time as we're spending. And next month, hopefully, by the end of next month, we'll see that supplemented with further cash flow injections coming in from that lease mining and processing agreement, which we're also in the process of discussing with the government, expanding that agreement, and hopefully we'll have some news flow coming out on that shortly.
Well, that's not a bad problem to have, some cash flow.
Yeah, look, we're never going to develop a tier one asset with that kind of treasury and even with those modest amounts of inflow, but it's very helpful, and no doubt we're a junior like every junior. If you get success and the results speak for themselves, and and things are going the right way, the market well supports you as your share price lifts, and it's funny how each capital raising becomes less and less dilutive, and more importantly, we go back to where I started this interview with you, Morris, where I said, the reaction for the Cortadera acquisition was one of amazement with the drilling intercepts they were seeing, and one of sheer sort of terror at how many shares we would have to put into the market to be able to fund this thing. It's funny that chorus of concern has really, really dampened down on volume as we've gone on with this. So it's an exercise of seeing an escalating share price being counterbalanced with the amount of shares that the company may have to put out to fund this. But we look at multiple funding scenarios and funding options, and we have very good dialogue with parties that have much broader funding shoulders than Hot Chili. But at the moment, in this market, the market has been supporting me very well, and we have the support of a number of large institutions over here in Australia, not least of all some of our large shareholders that have carried us through the bad times.
How much debt do you have, and what is your burn rate?
We have no debt. We do have a historic debt facility that we took out with our major shareholders with a convertible note. That convertible note has the equivalent of some 200 million pieces of paper against it. But look, that was an automatic conversion. It converts automatically. I think we have about 2 years or 18 months left, and all of those convertible notes become paper. So our capital structure, you instantly add about 200 million shares to that. But those note holders, while they hold the convertible notes, they enjoy a quarterly interest payment of 8%. That the company can pay out in cash or shares at our elect, that is based on a floating share price at the end of that quarter on a 5-day VWAP. So as the share price increases, obviously we have to service that con note for the next 18 months or so with an ever decreasing amount of shares to those convertible note holders. But look, we assume that convertible note is paper, and so you can instantly turn 2.4 billion shares into 2.6 odd billion shares, and so we don't have a debt instrument with the company. We have an equity instrument that's sitting on our balance sheet. That is why I always talk about our fully diluted capital structure.
You referenced major shareholders. Who are they?
Look, our largest shareholder and our spiritual leader of Hot Chili is Murray Black, our chairman. He's the guy that backed me when I was a young geologist that had a bigger ambition in the world to eventually run my own company. So Murray's been my closest friend, my biggest ally, and the company, one of the company's biggest supporters. The Kalgoorlie Group, we sit at 10.1%. We used to hold a 19.9% position, but that has been diluted somewhat. So we're still the largest shareholder, and Murray and the Kalgoorlie Group, which I'm associated with, have put well over $20 million of hard cash into the company to support it in each of the raisings that we've completed over the years. After that, we have some very notable names, one of them being the Taurus Funds Management Group, a private equity group over in Sydney, run by Gordon Galt and represented on our board by Michael Anderson. They've been extremely supportive and shared the long-term vision of the company. And we couldn't have done this without some shareholders like that. And for the North American market, of course, the Rick Rules of the world and the Sprott Group, which again were absolutely instrumental in Hot Chili still being alive and still being here today to be able to succeed in in actually executing this long-term business plan. We also have local large shareholders in our partners at Productora. The CAP CMP group, they not just have 20% of our asset at Productora in an operating joint venture, but they also have a large shareholding that they've maintained on our register. And so some very, very notable names. And just sitting underneath the 5% level, we have a growing stable of very high net worths over here in Australia, sprinkled in with a growing institutional presence. So they're not over the 5% line, so I really am not at liberty to discuss those names, but I imagine in due course we'll see some of the Australian institutional and fund space probably growing their positions in the company.
Those are some exclusive and reputable names you just referenced there. What is the float?
The free float in the company,
Yes,
in terms of our cash available on hand.
No, sir. Shareholders.
Oh, in terms of our shareholders. Sorry, float means a few things over in Australia. You'll probably have to qualify that, Morris. Apologies for the misunderstanding.
No worries, sir. Retail investors. What percentage do they own?
Retail investors at the moment. A float. What does our retail component look like? We used to have a quite a small retail component. It used to probably comprise about 20%. That retail component has grown to probably about 50%, or around 45%. So we've seen a movement to retail, small mum and pup investors, and it's really represented by how many shareholders. You go back to before the Cortadera deal was announced, and we might have had 1,000 shareholders. We have nearly 3,000 shareholders, so that tells you a lot. We've probably seen a movement of about 25% of our register towards retail now, but that's not uncommon for an Australian stock or even a Canadian stock in the resource space. Retail has been driving this resource boom or renaissance, if you want to call it that. And in Australia, share prices are made and re-rates are instigated and sustained by retail investors, and that's been going on for quite a number of years. So the institutions and the fund space have really been taking a back seat to that. They've been really instrumental in how the companies have funded themselves going through their re-rates, and some very exciting stories that are really invigorating the market over here. But it's the retail investors that are driving this, and so the messaging that we have has very much pivoted towards the retail sector, and really trying to give the retail guys what they're looking for. So the retail space in Hot Chili, or the float in Hot Chili, is probably around 45% at the moment, which means that the major shareholders, which we used to have 56% of the company in the hands of 5 players, some of the names I just mentioned, now those 5 players represent some 28% of the company. So it probably tells you a lot as to what's happened with the changing dynamic on our register.
In closing, sir, what keeps you up at night that we don't know about?
Look, there's many things to keep a CEO up at night. I'm always extremely interested in my drilling report in the morning from the 2 drill rigs on the ground, and hopefully we'll push that out and have a further drill rig or 2 on the ground in the coming months. But it's all about what the next 30 or 60 meters of the diamond hole looks like on holes that are really exciting, and they dictate the coming year for us. So that keeps me up at night from an excitement perspective, and then from a worry perspective, I guess it's this ever-changing environment in the market. It's watching the news is one of those things that has your head spinning sometimes, especially what's going on in the US with the election and where that will push global markets. But at the moment, having just gone through such a really intense phase for our company, trying to produce a very robust resource figure that could be scrutinised by many independents that no doubt we'll have a look at that in the coming months. I sleep pretty well after not sleeping probably for about 12 weeks, and and going through that resource so thoroughly that we ironed out every little thing that we couldn't understand or it didn't make sense. And, why is the block grade of the block model here, and why is the assay grade here? These things don't make sense. And, absolutely spending 12 weeks of my life hunting down every little aspect of that resource that could make that bulletproof and representative of the world-class asset that is coming together. So now I'm sleeping pretty good, but you do wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go and have a glass of milk and try to make sure that you can actually get 4 or 5 hours of sleep and turn your brain off. So those are the things that keep me up at night.
And if anyone's questioning your veracity, I can vouch for it. You and I are 12 hours apart, and we've been in discussions here in the last month and a half, and whenever I pick up the phone or send you an email, there's a response immediately.
Yeah. There's one thing about having your head office over in Perth where your family is, and having all of your people and your operations over exactly 12 hours out. So we're all of the people in Hot Chili are quite used to late night emails and conference calls and very early morning conference calls and emails, etc. So we run a 24-hour business, and management has got to be switched on 24 hours a day. So it's you get used to it, Morris.
All right, sir. Last question. What did I forget to ask?
Gee, pretty thorough interview.
Thank you.
Maybe we can think about that for next time, and hopefully I'll be able to give some of your viewers an update, and we can address some of the things that for now we'll maybe save some powder and keep it dry for our next interview.
Looking forward to it, sir. Mr. Easterday, it's been an absolute delight to speak with you today. Wishing you and Hot Chili the absolute best, sir.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Morris. I really appreciate your time today.
Hot Chili Limited trades on the ASX symbol HCH. Hot Chili Limited is a sponsor of Proven and Probable, and we are proud shareholders for the virtues conveyed in today's message. Before you make your next bullion purchase, make sure you call me. I'm a licensed representative to buy and sell physical precious metals through Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments, but we have several options to expand your precious metals portfolio, from physical delivery of gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and rhodium to offshore depositories and precious metal IRAs. Give me a call at 855-505-1900, or you may email maurice@milesfranklin.com. Finally, please subscribe to Proven and Probable for mining insights and bullion sales. Subscription is free.
The information presented on Proven and Probable is provided for educational and informational purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice, or any other advice. You should not make any financial, investment, or trading decision based on any of the information presented without first undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or competent financial advisor.